The images were impressive. Puva. The United States would have effectively denied entry to a Russian universal tanker carrying approximately 270,000 barrels of diesel from Brazil destined for Cuba. The sanctioned vessel stopped about 1,000 miles off the Cuban coast in mid-April, and since then, it has changed course, moving away from the island amid the continued enforcement of restrictions by the United States, according to reports. Well, this video is current. Of course this is current, of course. It's just like archive footage, so to speak, right? Well, not archive. It's current footage. Let's not say otherwise. It seems strange to me in this video, like, no, now I see. This is it. This is 100% current. The announcement made by the United States, which is that, in fact, the use would have been, let's say, limited. They already allowed a ship to enter for humanitarian reasons, but not another one, not anymore. Not anymore. Another thing that draws attention is what Donald Trump has said about this. Listen to this.
An agreement with Iran that just calls for further talks on the Iranian issue, or is it the only option?
And one of the things of the Republic, it's a memorandum of understanding, so to speak. And one of the things that will happen is the Strait will open immediately. But it's got to be perfect. I'm not going to go for a crummy agreement. The worst agreement ever signed was by Hussein Obama. What a horrible agreement that was. It was a setback for this country, for the whole world. The Middle East would have blown itself up. No, I would like to have.
According to Donald Trump, the worst deal that had been made was the deal that was made with Obama at the time, according to what Trump says. And, well, he says that he wants it to be more than just a deal. He wants not just a truce and for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened immediately, but he also says that Iran should sign the Abraham Accords. Donald Trump wants Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and the others, including Iran, to sign the Iran agreements. Look, the latest information I have right now is that this is already escalating to a situation, let's say, of total risk of war. Look, according to Iranian television, the Iranian state television published a new framework in the Memorandum of Understanding, in which it is demanding the immediate release, it says here, of $12 billion in frozen funds by the United States. This would serve as tangible verification before Iran signs any agreement or agreements before anything else. Cash. Money. That's how the White House has just issued a statement of complete rejection, because the United States says, no, first nuclear commitments, and then we talk. In other words, first you commit that you won't. That you'll give us the uranium, and then we'll talk, then we'll discuss it. And that's it, right? That's the whole issue. Well, so that's how things are, right? According to Iran, check out these points. Iran is asking for the restoration of commercial transit through the Strait of Hormuz, or rather offering to return it to pre-war levels within 30 days. In other words, they open the strait, but they add a condition. It would be under permanent Iranian authority. And then it says, for this restoration, maritime traffic management through the Strait of Hormuz will be handled in cooperation with Oman through tolls called environmental protection fees, excluding United States military vessels. That too. Well, obviously it's part of it. Well, I don't know if I would call it negotiation anymore, but rather it's Iran's attempt to declare itself the winner, right? They want to declare themselves the winner, so they make moves like that. Such drastic ones, right? The next point. The United States military forces must withdraw from the areas near Iran. It's curious that today, Trump or the United States sends a message to Israel saying that if they make the agreement, the United States might possibly have to withdraw, let's say. They would have to withdraw their planes from Israel, which is obviously an issue that must be worrying the Israelis, right? Because in the end, right? It would leave them, let's say, with less defense, right? Israel and the area itself would now be more vulnerable, so to speak. And in that case, Iran wouldn't want to make a move. It couldn't be done much faster, right? Who knows? But the agreement also has another point. There is a period of 60 days, and the period would be approved as a resolution that would be binding in the UN Security Council. So that means, well, the next step would be that the problem would become global if it's not complied with. I mean, if it's not fulfilled, then the problem would become global, right? I mean, other countries could even get involved to force the country. So that it isn't in violation in case that was necessary, which obviously would be escalating things, right? But also the commitment would be at its highest. The Minister of Foreign Affairs declared today that there are no Iranian nuclear commitments, nor will there be any uranium delivery in any preliminary agreement, making the deal structurally impossible. So Iran says there's no agreement. There's no possibility of an agreement. This is about the uranium issue. And the United States says, well, then there's no way to negotiate. And Trump says the following, because Trump was also asked about it today. Well, are you going to lift the sanctions? I mean, the journalist asked him today, are you going to lift the sanctions or something? I don't know. So what do you think? And Trump said it very clearly. In that sense, he said absolutely not. I mean, the sanctions are not going to be lifted by the United States. It's that simple. That's why they're saying what we're seeing right now. These Niños that we've been seeing these last 3 or 4 days, and especially in these last few hours, this would already be, let's say, the beginning of the end of any possibility of an agreement. But there's just one thing that makes me stop and think that maybe the agreement still has a chance. And what is that? Oil in the end. As long as oil continues. Let's do it. Let's go by the price. As long as oil stays, let's say here, here it's $95.77. As long as it stays below 100, even though it's still very high, at least the price is going down. It means that oil is coming out one way or another. Oil is coming out, and there's enough oil for everyone so that the price starts to go down. That's the only sign that makes me think that right now there are still chances for an agreement. The moment investors say, no way, there's no negotiation, oil is going to skyrocket again. It's going to go up again. He says the following, Donald Trump has ruled out offering relief from sanctions to Iran in exchange for Tehran giving up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium, which would underline that tensions continue to rise. There is no negotiation. On the other hand, changing the subject, look at what's happening. Let's see. There are several people, especially a missionary doctor from the United States, who is suspected of having Ebola and who could be treated in the United States. But now it turns out that Trump's team has planned to send Americans exposed to Ebola. It's better to send them to Kenya rather than bring them back home and have them receive treatment there, because right now they are in Germany. But the Germans just say no deal, take them away, right? So he said, I'm not going to take them in that case. Well, I'll send them to Kenya, but they don't want to send them to the United States. According to the administration's report, Trump plans to send American citizens exposed to Ebola to Kenya instead of repatriating them. The ongoing Ebola outbreak is centered in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, although some cases have also been detected in Uganda. The World Health Organization has declared the outbreak a public epidemic in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and its surrounding areas. Now, the New York Times reports that 3 people were aware of the plans, and they saw how, well, the issue is to send them to Kenya and not repatriate them to the United States, which is also an important matter. I was telling you a moment ago that Canada, the United States, and Mexico are currently strengthening the measures for how this whole issue is going to be handled. Because in the end, there's a World Cup coming and a lot of people from all over the world will be coming, so we have to keep an eye on that. Another thing that catches my attention is officials. Look. Officials from Syria are said to have found the remains of the chemical weapons program from the time of the Assad regime, based on what they've shown. From what's known right now in that part of the world, Syria is at a significant moment in that regard. because they couldn't find them, right? There, well, the search to eliminate these weapons, these missiles with chemical weapons, had already begun. The government of that country had located the remains of the clandestine chemical weapons program of former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who is, well, a dictator who, along with his father, ruled for decades and used chemical weapons, even against his own people. 18 people suspected of being involved in the chemical weapons program of the former regime have also been. There are high-ranking military officers, politicians, and technicians who are currently detained for having been involved with chemical weapons. Another important matter is what's happening with NVIDIA. Taiwan develops chips, right? And according to reports, they found that a group of people, a group of smugglers, were dedicated to buying artificial intelligence chips. But then they sent them to China because sales to China are, let's say, blocked. The operation marks the first formal criminal action on the island against the illegal diversion of cutting-edge technology. Washington is under pressure to close the routes for sanction evasion. By the way, that's also one of the points Taiwan expects others to respect, right? I mean, on the part of the United States, that this kind of restriction continues as well. Another thing that stands out is that you remember one of the producers, right? Who would have been linked to this three-body problem movie, right? Xu Xiao was found guilty of killing Li Qin, who is the founder of Yusu Games, based in Shanghai, which owns the film adaptation rights to the science fiction trilogy, The Three-Body Problem. Yes, well, according to what the Chinese authorities report, there would have been. He is the founder of that company, Yusu Games. And that's where the movie comes from. And I think the book too. And all this about the three-body problem. By the way, if you haven't seen that series, please watch it. It's on Netflix. Super interesting, super interesting. According to reports, Xu Xiao was declared. I mean, the one who poisoned this person. He was found guilty of killing Li Qin, the founder of Yusu Games, based in Shanghai and owner of the trilogy, the one about the three-body problem. And so they're going to execute him. I mean, they execute him for having for having murdered. He was a criminal for having poisoned this person, right? So, well, he was declared guilty and he's going to be executed, right? So this is an amazing trilogy because this science fiction trilogy by the Chinese author Liu Jin was translated into 40 different languages, right? I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, this project has done really well, right? Let's move on to other important matters.
Have approved our new long-range operations. That's what is needed for Russia to start feeling that they will have to pay for this war with their own.
Kabob. In the comments that Zelensky makes on this topic, Zelensky announces that the new long-range attacks against Russia will be carried out. Because of the huge losses they have been having, especially in material terms, due to the drones, missiles, and ballistic missiles that Russia launches. He says the Russian oil industry will continue to shrink if Russia chooses war. Zelensky assured that as long as the war continues, they will be destroying Russia's entire energy infrastructure. He also asked Washington to take action, to be more effective, and he emphasizes that without more air defense systems and support, diplomacy will work even less. In other words, diplomacy works because you have a strong hand, and that strong hand, well, is weapons at the end of the day. And in that situation, if not, well, when facing an invader, it's really complicated to keep going with the issue. Another thing that also draws attention today is that, well, this image has been shown, right? Let's see if we can put it up, because there it is. It's an image where they claim, how are these, let's say, hotspots in the Pacific being detected, which they say confirms the El Niño data. Esto en el mar. According to what they report, the phenomenon will arrive earlier than expected. This comes from the Sentinel-6 satellite Sociedad America, and it has detected a surge of warm water hundreds of miles wide in the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of South America. Well, this would also show, as had been warned, that the El Niño phenomenon is going to accelerate, right? I mean, it's going to speed up. And in theory, instead of arriving at the end or middle of summer, but they said around autumn, that was the most likely. In fact, the reports even said it would be the last quarter, right? Almost at the end of autumn. That's when the phenomenon would begin. Now they're saying it might happen earlier, possibly early or midsummer. Another image that has been circulating is this one. This image with a cell phone shows how a message reaches residents of Tyre over there in Lebanon, who receive a message and a phone call with a voice telling them to evacuate the area immediately if they live in Tyre, because there have been, well, these attacks, right? A moment ago, we saw these images of attacks and bombings inside Tyre, where the IDF from, how do you say Israel says? The IDF of Israel has been announcing that it has been attacking different areas where they say Hezbollah headquarters are located. But also in this message we saw on the cell phone, it's striking that basically the entire southern part is going to be attacked. Let's say there is a chance of being attacked. They even put it on the map from Israel's Arabic language spokesperson, where they also mentioned the exact points that were going to be attacked so that people would leave the danger zone. Obviously, it's an extremely tough situation for the people living in Lebanon. This image is also, this is a plane that Israel is acquiring. Israel has received the first of 6 KC-46 Pegasus aircraft from the United States. Sorry. Those are aerial refueling planes that Israel requested, and they are going to call them Gideon. So they can retire their Boeing 707 fleet. The 707 fleet will no longer be in service. They are going to have a fleet of new planes. There are 6 planes like the one I just showed, the one we just saw. 6 planes of this type. No, there it is. 6 planes of that type are the ones that will be operating right now. For what? To refuel planes. Yes, combat. And it's for combat. All of this is cargo. You know, they carry gasoline, they carry turbo or whatever it's called. And so with that, they're sending them the fuel, let's say to these planes. Well, that's also part of today's footage. Also, well, within the footage, some interesting images we're going to share for a bit. Pues toma un celular, miren. That happened in the Dominican Republic, where a person with a very long stick takes a cell phone. I mean, apparently he put one of those sticky traps used to catch mice on it. And with that, he takes the cell phone, even the cell phone that's plugged in. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay? There's the cell phone, and he takes it without even entering the house. He just takes the cell phone. This technique is really amazing, isn't it? I imagine he was lurking there, looking through the window to see where the cell phone was, and then he saw where they put it. He immediately went and took it with that stick. The video lasts 1 minute and 5 seconds from the moment he starts to come in until he leaves with the cell phone. It takes 1 minute and 5 seconds to take the cell phone. Honestly, that moment is amazing too. Also another one. Something that draws attention is these images shared today by Ukraine, showing how drones have been attacking the Caspian Sea naval fleet. Yes, there we can see how these ships are operating in the sea. Those ships, let's see, are responsible for attacking Ukraine. but from a distant area to avoid being attacked themselves, right? So look, if we observe it here on the map, we can see how from the Caspian Sea, from here, they launch attacks on Ukraine. I mean, the fleet that's here. Initially, Ukraine couldn't attack here because it was too far away. But with drones and the techniques they have, now they've also been putting the naval fleet in this huge lake called the Caspian Sea in check. Before, the naval fleet was here, look, in Crimea, but that fleet had to flee to Russian areas, like to this area of Russian ports, okay? But now not even that has been enough. They've had to attack the ships that are on this side all the way to Ukraine. Missiles are launched at Ukrainians from here, passing over Russia. But this time, these ships are also being attacked by Ukraine. So, well, that's also part of what's happening right now. By the way, moving on to other important matters. Well, there was also a series of earthquakes today near Tonga. Let's see if we can cover this topic here. This area has had several aftershocks, an earthquake of 5.4 along with other aftershocks in the area, in these regions of islands close to Fiji. All this area, right? I mean, very, very close to that zone. Aside from that topic, another earthquake that stands out is one that happened in the Atlantic, which also drew attention today. This is a strong earthquake. Let's put the image here. This is the earthquake. Well, it's a strong earthquake with a magnitude of 6, right? According to the data, it's a 6.0 with a depth of 10 kilometers, but there's no tsunami warning, right? To see where it is, it's just below or south of Australia, right? And it's not just one. Look, you can't really see it. There are two earthquakes. That's what's interesting. There are two earthquakes, both with a magnitude of 6. Look, they happened about 11 or 12 minutes apart. Two earthquakes, 6.0 and 6.0. I hadn't seen something like this before. I mean, seeing two earthquakes of the same magnitude and with such a small difference in the epicenter, almost exactly the same, right? So, well, I don't know what happened there. It's really strange, honestly, right? Let's see if they explain later what happened with that issue, because it's so far away that maybe it doesn't really affect us. No one really notices, so it goes kind of unnoticed. But if you look closely, the epicenter is practically in the same area. And well, besides that, there are also aftershocks over there in Chile. This is a 5 point, what is it? 5.1? Yes, this one right here. Sorry, that one over here, 5.1. This one exactly. Because here we're seeing others in Peru, little ones in Chile and Bolivia. But this is the earthquake I'm telling you about. That is possibly the one, an aftershock, a 5.5.1. 5.1 looks like 5.1. Yes, with a lot of depth, by the way, right? So, well, no problem, obviously, for the Chileans, right? That's also important to mention. Well, let's move on to other topics, right? Let's go to other important matters as well. Iran is sending another message. I mean, it's been a back and forth. Iran is warning and once again issuing a kind of ultimatum, so to speak, that the Strait of Hormuz, simply put as they see it, is not going to change anymore. They will keep controlling the Strait of Hormuz. It's not going to be like before anymore. It's that simple. It's not going to be like before. That's the message they're sending. And well, that's also part of the controversies they're experiencing, right? No. In the meantime, let's move on to other important topics. Hello? They've done well as a state. Thank you for joining us. There are several topics still pending, right? We'll discuss them during the live stream, but I wanted to send greetings to the whole community, both live viewers and those watching later. Thank you very much for being here. Look, there's that image. This is in San Sebastian de Sebastopol over there in Crimea, right? Where fires are also being reported. They say that there have been attacks or movements, so something is happening in this area. They report that, well, in some regions, there are fires happening, right? It's not very clear exactly what's happening, but obviously it's something that draws attention. Let's see if later there are a few more details about the issue, right? Right? Also, this reaction that the United States has regarding Iran is interesting. They say, we're really doing well. Things are really going well for us. Doing well with Iran, he says, but people don't want to talk about it. The Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Basically, he's saying they're under control now, basically, according to Trump. But at the same time, what they're asking is, when is the withdrawal coming? When will they leave the Strait of Hormuz? And that's where there is no answer, right? Nobody knows yet, right? So that's still the problem in the end, isn't it? I mean, it's fine if you say you're winning, but prove it too, right? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Donald Trump says that the midterm elections will not influence his strategy against Iran. He says we'll finish the job, right? Like he's saying that just because of the elections, we're not going to stop operating or attacking, right? Because that's the suspicion, that because of the elections, they might say, well, it's better if we don't do anything. We withdraw and leave everything half done. Well, that's what people think could happen. It's not happening right now. Let's move on to other things then. How have you been? Thanks so much for joining us. Well, here we are paying attention to what's happening in the world. The Middle East is very active, and so is the situation with Ukraine and Russia. And, well, besides that, there are also challenges right now with the heat wave and everything else. A big greeting to those watching us on replay and to those watching us live. Thank you very much for being here with us. Let me open up the comments because I started very directly this time. And now, well, you wouldn't even know, right? Anyway, a big hello. Marcela, we're here. I see you now, Marcela. How have you been, Marcela? How's everything? Did you feel the earthquake? I didn't ask you, actually. I don't know if you mentioned it somewhere, if you're in the north or not. It says, yes, if we hear about wars, we don't worry. And if we hear about war, there's danger lurking in the shadows. Greetings, Carlos Martinez. How are you? Marvin, let's see. So what was that about? What was that about? How does the phrase go? Or what is it referring to? He says, let's see. Let's go back to the truth. He says, if we hear about wars, we don't worry. If we don't hear about war, there's danger in the shadows, he says. I get it now. I understand where this is going. Thank you, Carlos. Greetings to Marvin too. How have you been? What's new? How's it going for the community that's joining the live stream? Please leave your comment. So show me that you're here, not just that you're around. Greetings to the whole community that's watching us, and here are the comments as well. Thank you so much to those who comment, to those who are connected here. Marvin, I insist, what's with all the dogs? I don't know if they're yours or what's going on, but they're cool too. Marvin says, I have several points about this. One is to keep the war going until the end of his term to stay in power. So you mean he wants to stay in power, like he gets into a long war, and since they're officially at war, there can't be a change of government, right? He says, two, the economy and the World Cup and their impacts. That's another point too, right? And it's either wait for the attack, right? I mean, just stay like that and do nothing until then. That's interesting too. How far does resilience go from the population as well? Because I feel like at some point people must also get tired of this issue. He says it right. He says it could be great. Okay. We're keeping an eye on things here. Liceo, hope your call goes well. He says we won't let you watch. Great. Thank you, Carlos. A big hello. How are you, Carlos? How have you been? He says, I'm in central Chile, Santiago, the capital, and it wasn't felt here, but nothing bad happened in Antofagasta. He even says, greetings, Marcela. So let's say everything turned out fine despite the scare, right? That's the point there. Hi, Maria Bermudez, how have you been? Sending warm greetings all the way to New York. Wendy, greetings to you too. How have you been? How are things? Is it still hot there or has it gotten better? They say Antofagasta says it was magnitude 6.7. My dear Pepe, greetings, Wando, when it was strong. The one yesterday was strong, wasn't it? Yes, right now as I'm talking, well, it's more of an aftershock, right? But yesterday's one really was, I mean, we showed some images that have been going around, tremendous. He says, I mean, the shaking, obviously. He says, please discuss the missing scientists. I may have missed it if you already did. I did mention another case. But yes, we will obviously be revisiting those topics because in the end, they're very interesting. And they're also related to what's happening in cybersecurity, hybrid warfare, and other things that we might not even focus on, right? But they're very interesting. Obviously, someone says it's very quiet and I have the volume all the way up. Look, Monica, see, I have the volume all the way up. I mean, it can't go any higher. I mean, if I go higher, it gets distorted. So it's strange to me. I don't know if anyone else has that problem. And the volume, and it's about cybersecurity. It's just that you can get to cybersecurity. It's a topic, cybersecurity. When you turn it all the way up, it sounds loud. I don't know if anyone else has that issue. Please let me know. Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Monica Rices. What are you listening on? On your phone, on a tablet, on the TV? Where? Please let me know. It says, let's see. It says, Wanda says, she's saying hi, great, Carlos says. Long live Chile and its people. Linda says, no, baby, we're at 82 degrees and it's horrible, she says. So the heat is still strong over there. I thought it was calmer already, but I see now. No, well, I see now. Yes. So it's hot. And also, I imagine it must be a humid heat, right? I mean, but it's close to 30 degrees, which for you is a lot, right? I mean, here too, I'm really happy with that. I mean, it's the same temperature here. We're exactly the same. 29 degrees here, 29 degrees in New York. It's cloudy here, right? So it's really nice, honestly. He says it sounds good. He says it sounds fine, Jose says. Oh, what's up, Jose? What's up, Cayo? How are you? Sol Garcia, big greetings to you too. Francisco Arce, how are you doing? No, well, it is hot. I mean, honestly, for this time for New York, yeah, it really is. It's hot, right? Over there. Just look. It's 29 degrees. Yeah, it's intense. Greetings. How have you been? Hi, Marcela, Carlos, Elisa. How have you been? Yes, I can hear you. Well, says Elisa. Okay, thank you, Elisa. She says, if we hear about wars, we don't worry. It means staying calm, not living in fear because of bad news. Robbie says, well, good point there, Robbie. Greetings as well. He also says, if we hear about war, walking in the shadows means being stealthy, avoiding exposing yourself unnecessarily, says Robbie. Marvin says, that's true, Robbie says. Some time ago, I was keeping track of all the global conflicts. After I stopped giving them importance, I lived as usual, normal. And again, going back to the bad news about war, he says, greetings, Marvin and I am totally like it is. We also have to learn how to interpret the challenges of the... I mean, we shouldn't see them like, okay? I mean, the challenges knocking at my door, they're more like things we can learn from. We're seeing history in real time, so to speak, right? And that shows us a little bit about where things are going, the trends, but not to be on edge all the time, as they say here, right? I mean, not to be afraid or anything like that. Because in any case, look, there are people who are going to be scared by everything that happens, and even what doesn't happen scares them, right? I think that if someone is very fearful, I don't think it's good for them to be listening to so much news. I actually think it's better for your mental health not to do it, right? News should be for that, to analyze, to understand a little bit of reality, right? And especially the challenges, right? Because the good things are abundant. That's what there's the most of, right? But we don't talk about that, right? Normally, we talk about what isn't there, what's missing, what we want to improve, and so on, right? But yes, there are always positive things, right? Definitely. And we also try to mention them. Obviously, that's not the main thing. Carlos says, we're not going to avoid wars. Barbie says, perfect. Pepe says, we need to stay informed. Greetings, Marvin. Big hello to Robbie and the whole community. You know, Wanda, I'm Chilean Mexican. My father's Chilean. My mother's from Mexico. I was born there, but they brought me here as a child. So it means your life is really integrated between these two countries. That's crazy, Wanda. That's interesting. I mean, and I imagine that you said they brought you here as a child. So you live in Chile. I imagine that right now you feel more Chilean, I guess, since you're living there, right? But you know Mexico quite well too, I imagine, right? I mean, because of your mom, right? What kind of accent do you have? That's going to be interesting to me. I mean, what's your accent like? I imagine it's more Chilean, obviously, since you're living over there, right? Yeah, well, that's interesting. And your food, what's that like? Is it kind of mixed too? I guess so. That's great. Say hi to your family for me. Also, he says, okay, he says, don't worry, we're keeping an eye out. Greetings, Robbie. And he says, have you heard about the pill that makes your teeth grow back where they've fallen out? Well, what they're doing, I mean, how do you say it? What's being developed is that it generates bone for you. Something like that. I don't know which one it is. What I knew is that it was experimental, that it's like a scientific breakthrough. But I don't know. No. I don't know and don't recommend anything. But what I do know is that there has been progress, right? But I don't know. I haven't heard absolutely anything about there already being a pill like that. The crazy thing is that there really has been progress, right? I mean, and the ability to generate bone there, all that stuff, right? It's really crazy. I'm not sure how viable this will be on a large scale. Like saying, we'll put this in and your tooth grows. Still, it sounds very interesting. It sounds super interesting. If it doesn't have negative effects or side effects or things like that, then it's really great, right? Just imagine, right? So, well, for those of us who have lost a tooth or something like that, I mean, it's really good, right? But I don't know. Is it about using a stem cell to regrow your teeth? Is it experimental? Yeah, something like that. Exactly, something like that. But I don't know. I mean, I keep wondering, how does it work? We've already talked about it. We've mentioned that breakthrough at least a couple of times already. We're discussing science now. We do cover it, but recently there's been little space for science topics. We'll continue to include it. Also, the interesting news at night, right? And I'm going to do it, Robbie. I also want to go out and report a little bit on the World Cup. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I mean, at least it's going to be something different during those days. We'll be doing it. It's just that it's right in front of me, so I can't not go, right? I mean, we have to do it, but it's a shame that, well, they don't let us in, right? Maybe if it were a channel just for reporting from outside, I might be able to get permission. But they're going to say, no, this is a podcast, not a reporting channel. He just wants to get in to see the World Cup. So I don't think they'll let us. But, well, let's see what's up, Beto says, he says. They tell me, no, you have to watch the news so you don't get nervous. But not being informed makes me nervous. It happens to me. I mean, it feels weird to me if I'm not up to date, you know? I mean, I've had the habit since I was very young. I used to see my parents and grandparents always watching the news. Besides, I didn't share them. No, it wasn't like, oh, don't talk to kids about those topics. No, they just always talked about the news. Normally, obviously, they gave us a version, I guess, more suitable for kids, right? But it was always interesting, and I asked a lot of questions. So, well, it was a habit, you know, to watch that, right? Watching the news and other shows, I also used to see my grandmother watching soap operas and this and that. It's easy. But the news was always like that. And the newspaper too, there was always the newspaper. So that part also kind of leaves a mark, you know? See, it's very expensive. Well, a lot of people come to Mexico from the United States to get treatment, right? There are areas full of dentists there. I think Monterrey must be one of the cities with the most dentists per capita in the world, honestly. I mean, there are a lot of dentists, a lot. And there are more every time, right? So who do they treat? Well, a lot of fellow Mexicans too, right? They come to Mexico for dental care for themselves and their kids because it's much cheaper than back home, right? He says, I've been listening to and watching the news for 54 years. Can you imagine, Carlos? 54 years of listening to and watching the news. It's crazy. Carlos, that's amazing. He says, search, compare, and go with what seems truest, says Eliseo. He says, especially at those places where you say, here, supermarket, it's super expensive. I want it to be good. Let's go. We'll be back in a bit with other important matters. Thanks so much for sharing, being here with us, and letting me keep you company wherever you are. If you're driving, always keep your eyes on the road and look ahead. Greetings, Jose Zaki, says Robbie. We invite you this weekend to the Luis Elizondo Laboratory. There will be a play called Frankie's Theme. It's going to be great. That's awesome, Luis. Robbie, we would like to go. Robbie? Sorry, at the Luis Elizondo. It's been a long time since I went. The last musical I went to was Jekyll, Jakey Languette from the Tech, right? Very good, by the way. It turned out great. It turned out really well there. I'm not sure who's handling the production you mentioned, but that's cool. I don't know if you're involved, but good luck with it. And really, we would love to go. I'll check later how the prices are and all that, and let's see if we decide to go, right? It would be great to go check it out. A huge shout out to Marvin, Marcela, Carlos, Robbie, and the whole community. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here keeping an eye out. The sun is coming out. It's already coming out. So it's going to be really hot because that's what I've seen these days. So it's going to be really, really humid. Awesome, Marvin. A huge shout out to everyone, including the community watching us later. Please leave your comment. See you later.